All right, Lark, I have to push you on something that you told me right before we got started with this. You said that 90% of people who invest in crypto lose money. I find that really interesting considering the fact that you have 1.8 million followers across social media on X and YouTube, and you tell people to invest in crypto. So please explain to me why you are not like a scam artist of some types, okay? And why people should actually listen to you.
Sure. Look, the reality of investing in crypto is it's an insane asset class, and most people will go way too far on the risk spectrum. Look, if you're the average guy coming into this space and you've got very little time, you got the wife, you got the job, you got the kids, you got maybe a sport that you play, you got your dog, whatever. You do not have time to be going down the rabbit hole and getting in the trenches and trying to find the next hot meme coin. Most people lose money doing that. Most people try to play that game. They try to dramatically outperform the market, and they get their butts handed to them consistently because they don't have the time or the expertise. You are going up against people who that is their full-time job. They've got bots and algorithms, and they're in every group everywhere. Their information asymmetry is way beyond what you're ever going to get. For most people, if you want to have some exposure to the crypto asset class, Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe something like Solana, and you're done. You're done. You don't need anything else. But you see the numbers, you see the stories, the greed starts getting to your head. I know, I'm in it every day. I understand. Right. And I get out on the risk spectrum. Sometimes I get my butt handed to me big time. Other times you make money. It is
That's
what
your
it is.
concern, people. Somebody who's doing this full time, who literally their business is centered around this, is still getting his butt handed to him. So, how much less of a chance do you have of succeeding or something like that? So, yeah, no, it's
Absolutely.
a great point.
Guys, it can be tough. So just the top coins are fine. If you're time poor, but you want to be exposed to crypto, dollar cost average on the top coins might sound boring, but you're going to outperform the S&P 500. And that's something pretty simple by a lot, right? And one other thing I want to mention here, because this is absolutely true of the cryptocurrency market.
Okay.
The vast majority of investors will only take any kind of interest in cryptocurrencies when they're at all-time highs. The vast majority of people will only buy high and sell low. They will not pay attention when the markets collapse. They will not buy when it's cheap. They will only buy high. And if you're that guy, you need to recognize that in yourself, or you're going to get wrecked.
Yep. I love it because in my mastermind, one of the things that we talk about is the contrarian investment portfolio. And this lines up perfectly with it because there's three different types of asset classes. And the first one is conventional. And that's things like stocks, real estate, the things that the general public is aware of, whether they're not investing in it or not. Then there's unconventional. And unconventional is traditionally where I would put crypto. Now, I will say with the recent spot ETF, now you can buy Bitcoin and Ethereum through that on the stock market. I'm seeing a shift of moving that from an unconventional asset to a conventional asset just through that. But I'm still kind of keeping it there because it's still not mainstream, right? And then the third asset class is you. And that's investing in yourself, treating your skills, your knowledge as an asset class and investing in that intentionally. And I want to talk to you about that in a little bit because like I said, you've been doing this for a few years now. You don't just accidentally grow to 1.8 million followers on YouTube. Everybody and their mother in about 2019 started a YouTube channel. A lot of families' bank accounts got wrecked over Thanksgiving a couple years ago, and it's like, so the people that are still around, like there's a reason for it, and I love the fact that we started this conversation. Here you are, a crypto evangelist in some way, so to speak, right? And yet you are warning of the dangers of crypto. Because that is actually what got me into coaching years ago, was the fact that I came into crypto through a very unusual way compared to most people. My first buy was actually Ethereum, not Bitcoin, because I worked at a company. Yeah, see, you're going, oh, really? That was your first?
Yeah.
Yeah, I skipped the gateway drug and went right to the hard stuff.
I like it.
So I bought Ethereum at about $50, put $8,000 in it. And what happened was, and it's also one of the greatest holds of all time that I've ever had personally. So what happened was I went and I was working for a company called Gartner, and they do IT research, consulting, different things like that with Fortune 500 companies. So I'm working with, top brass, CEOs, CIOs, all this other stuff. And normally the things that they're looking at are things that are going to be coming down the pipe about 3 to 5 years in advance. They're focused on that forward-looking strategy when they're talking to us. So blockchain in, I believe this was 2017, was the top search term under the technology in our database. So all the CEOs wanted to talk about this blockchain thing. And then when I saw the disruptive power that our analysts were talking about that this technology could have, and found out I could invest in it through this, little app called Coinbase nobody knew about at the time. I said, hey, I've got some money. I'll throw $8,000 in there and see what happens. Well, I eventually made 100% on that. I mean, and these were the Wild West days, 2017. I want to know when you got in, but I mean, I remember days we were fluctuating 50% on the average. So it's like I made 100% of my money, sold half of it, and said, I'm playing with house money now. I'm going to let it ride and see what happens. And I didn't sell for 5 years. And when I exited, I was very happy. So, tell me a little bit about your origin story, how you got into crypto and, started essentially, going beyond investing and becoming, a business man essentially in this area.
It's interesting. I started buying crypto in 2017. It's funny how you kind of feel late to the game when you start getting in, but I'd seen it go up and it was down 30, 40% from those recent highs, which now looking back at those prices are like laughably cheap, right? But
what were you doing at that point in time, by the way?
What's that?
What were you doing at that point in time, by the way, in 2017 for work? What was your job?
Yeah, I was an English teacher. I was an English teacher back then.
Okay, so not like a direct tie-in like I did.
Nothing. Now, look, I'd studied political science at school, and I'd actually had Bitcoin sort of on the radar for a while. And it's a funny story. I remember the first time I heard about Bitcoin was 2012, and we were in our teaching assistant office having a conversation, and we started talking about this Bitcoin thing. It was in the news. It was hot. The price was hitting all-time highs, and it was the first sort of hype cycle around Bitcoin at that time. We're like, wow, it's really interesting stuff. And I was like, I should probably get some of that because I had a lot of contrarian sort of political views and stuff like that. I learned enough at university doing a 5-year political studies degree to realize the last thing in the world I want to do is work in politics or anything like that.
Yep.
But it gave me an interesting foundation, I suppose, for ways to think about the world. But I thought, man, this Bitcoin thing's really interesting. However, I'm a teaching assistant and I'm broke and I need beer money this weekend, so screw it. I'm not going to buy Bitcoin. But it sparked an interest and I kept an eye on it. It was always sort of in my my Forex app. So I'd have New Zealand dollars, US dollars, euros, Russian rubles, and like Bitcoin. And so I'd always be watching, seeing what it's doing price-wise. And then 2017, my mom calls me up and she's like, hey, you need to go check out this Bitcoin thing because I don't understand it, but you're going to understand it. And it's going to be big. And she's like, I've been listening to all these sort of contrarian podcasts. We're talking about Bitcoin and like, anarcho-capitalist kind of stuff. I was like, all right, I'll look into it again. And I looked into it. I was like, yes, this is the thing. I got to go in.
Checked all the boxes to your sweet really little contrarian heart.
Oh, it really did. It's funny. I remember the first few weeks of investing in crypto, just like the sort of like lack of sleep, just buzzing at night, being like, oh my gosh, yes. Crypto's amazing. What's going on?
Doesn't stop.
So cool. And so that all sort of grew from this obsession with the asset class and what Bitcoin was doing and all these different sort of use cases and stuff. This is 2017. There was a lot of bullshit back then, and there's still a lot of bullshit today. And it's funny because all these people get really excited about all these new ideas. Like, there's nothing new under the sun. We were talking about all this stuff back in 2017, man. But this is the 10th iteration of that idea. What are you people talking about? But in November of 2017, just before the market peak, about 6 weeks before market peak, I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going all in. I'd been making videos by that point for 3 or 4 months, and it never really, I didn't start making videos based on the idea that I'm going to become, some big content creator in the space. I was just having fun. I was enjoying myself, and I started posting content, and people started asking questions. I'd say, well, because they come from the teacher background, like, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to find out, and then I'm going to tell you guys what the answer is, and sort of make an educational video on that. And I just kept growing it from there, and people started watching the videos, asking more questions, and so you kind of learn a lot as you go through, of course, on making videos and what videos do well, what the audience wants, what the audience needs, not always what they want also. It's a very important thing to consider. And so a lot of things started happening, and left the day job, and I was just going like full in, like all day, crazy amounts of content. I think I was doing like 5 live streams a week, like 2 videos a day. It was just absolutely nuts during the peak of the mania. Yeah, it was nuts. It was a good time though. I had a great time. It just really, felt in the flow. And the 2018 bear market comes, and everything just dries up, right? There's no more
Gone.
affiliate income. There's the views drop by like 95% or something
Oof.
like that.
Ouch.
So it's rough. And 2018, it's interesting because the recent bear market in 2022 was a breeze. I had no problems at all. I mean, there were some things that were pretty catastrophic that happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But nobody doubted that crypto was going away at that point. In 2018, there was a real existential crisis sort of vibe going on where people were thinking,
Yeah, you had a lot of
this
things
may
with
not come back.
governments looking to block and like a bunch of other things. The 2022 was more like an exchange issue, and kind of that collapse we had with Voyager, Three Arrows, and that entire fiasco, FTX. So, but I'm with you. It was more of a, in some cases, it was a reckoning, because I know one of the things, it's the double-edged sword of what we've had to deal with, of the fact that, we like our crypto independent of the system, but then at the same time, we like the system in there because it brings in stability from the investment side.
Yep.
So, and we just saw lots of these people being irresponsible as the Wild Wild West. It's like, I used to tell people, I was like, imagine, they're like, what happened? Like, explain it to me like I'm 5. And I'm like, imagine that you opened up a brand new credit card, took $20,000 out, maxed out the limit on 30%, and then you went to a casino in Vegas and stuck it all on black. I said, and then you did it again if you won. I said, that's essentially what these exchanges were kind of doing. And they're like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, it's about as irresponsible as you could have got. So, from a regulation perspective, the people that were, kind of, running the exchanges, things like that, yeah, we earned the regulation that we're going to get, but I think in the long term, it'll pay off. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that sort of Wild West aspect, to an extent, Wall Street's here, they're taming Bitcoin, BlackRock bought, gargantuan sums of Bitcoin, tens of billions at this point. And you still have that Wild West vibe, and it morphs over time. Back in 2017, it was ICOs, right? We had these crazy ICOs, these new token launches, right? Basically new startups coming out, and people were throwing crazy amounts of money, crazy raises. EOS was like a top blockchain. They raised, what did they raise? Did they raise $4 billion
that
for
much?
A piece of software? It was insane. And of course, here's the best part about it. You know what they did with their $4 billion? They went and bought Bitcoin with it. And abandon the protocol, because that's what happens in crypto, man. They said, hey, here, community, you can run it now. We're going to take our $4 billion and get out of here.
I remember EOS. That's right. Oh my gosh.
And then 2020, we had this big renaissance of the Ethereum blockchain with all these decentralized finance protocols, because in 2019, we started having actual protocols launch, and things started to actually happen on chain that really just hadn't happened anywhere in any meaningful way before that. Everything was junk and terrible user experience. Things started actually get good in 2019. 2020, it really kicked off, and there was all these sort of Ponzi-nomics things happening where you were getting like 50 million % APY every 3 hours, and just dumb, just totally dumb stuff, like unbelievably dumb. But people made a lot of money very quickly. And then 2021, we had, new meme coins pop up and stuff like this, and NFTs went absolutely nuts. A new novel use case, a new casino, a new Ponzi, a new way where people made and lost fortunes. And now we have meme coins. Barrier to entry, 0. Launch meme coin in 2 minutes.
Pepe, Andy, Brett, take your pick, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So why, for the person out there that's crypto curious, let's call them, right? I work with a lot of people who come to me and, they're like, listen, I've got some money. What do I do with it? Right. And we always talk about lifestyle design, and that is essentially building the life that you want. So we start with the destination in mind. Okay, where do you want to be in 3 years? That's the time frame that we use. Then we go back to, okay, where are you right now? Not just from a financial perspective, but in relation to your goals. And then we start the journey. We bridge the gap between where they are and getting there. And when we're doing that, risk is always a part of that. So we have to take that into account anytime we are putting our money into anything. It doesn't matter if it's crypto, it doesn't matter if it's stocks, real estate, a business, whatever the case is. So, for you, what is the best framework from a mindset perspective when it comes to investing in crypto, So you end up at the 10% of people who make money in crypto and not the 90 who are getting rug pulled.
Yeah, you have to be contrarian, and you have to be ready to take a little risk once in a while. And often the consensus views of whatever the hive mind is thinking at the time usually tends to be wrong. And it,
That's
it can
great.
be hard to have a contrarian point of view. It was very contrarian for people who were buying Solana at $20, and I wasn't at the time, but people were, right? It was very contrarian buying truckloads of Ethereum back in 2020, right, or 2019. People were saying, nothing's not going to come back. Nothing's really happening over there. But if you can be contrarian like that, you can pay off very, very well in crypto. But for the average investor, and this is something I like to think about, look, what I do and a lot of the people sort of in the community and stuff that we've built, people are deep in crypto. We're dealing with investors that may have no other investments elsewhere. And I'm always telling people, guys, you got to diversify out of crypto. Crypto's
Right.
crazy. And like, we love Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin, great long-term hold, whatever. But like, yeah, you guys are investing in some crazy stuff here, man. It's not even investing. It's just straight up gambling half the time. And if you make money doing that, stop putting money back in. If you make big money, take it out, man. Buy metals, buy stocks,
Take
buy real
gains.
estate. Just put it in something safer. It's going to make it for you, right? Because most of this stuff, the vast majority of cryptocurrencies, it's wild when you look at the statistics. And it's not so dissimilar from other startup stuff. It's maybe crazier, especially when you get off into the risk factors like meme coins and stuff. But the vast majority of cryptos, 99% of these coins are going to go down to zero, essentially. And they have. Look at the history.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like you're just making that forecast. We have seen this. For people that don't know, yeah, when we say cycles, we're talking about normally 4 years, because that tracks, I won't get into the technicalities of it, but it tracks along with Bitcoin specifically, and the majority of the market tends to follow Bitcoin still. It is still king. So when we talk about these cycles, we're talking about these 4-year periods to where we can look back since 2012 and look at the data very confidently and say, yeah, it may not match up exactly perfectly every time, but it's pretty damn close that we can assume certain peaks and highs based off, certain factors. And when that happens, to your point, it's like a forest fire comes through. The only thing left standing is the super healthy, strong trees that have a reason to be there. All the crazy underbrush and noise and everything like that totally gets burned away, and it makes room for new growth to come. So, that's why I agree with you. If people want to invest, you really just need to be looking at the top 3 right now: a Bitcoin, an Ethereum, a Solana. That's it. If you want to gamble, then everything below that is fair game.
Yeah, and that's for gambling money, by the way, guys. If you're listening to this, look, I would say for the normal investor, and you look at the big funds and stuff like this, the big asset managers, they echo something similar. For the average investor, something like a 3 to 5% allocation. If you're really like big into tech stocks and stuff like that, maybe a 10% allocation to crypto and just the top coins. You don't need to go crazy here, okay? And if you are gonna, you can have fun. You can have fun, just like you go to Vegas for a weekend and have fun. But you don't take your life savings to Vegas. You don't remortgage your house and go to Vegas, right? You take a week's salary, a few $1,000, whatever it's going to be. And you just go and you have fun. And if you lose it, you lose it. And if you want to gamble and you see the crazy going out, meme coins and stuff like that, and you want to participate in that, you can participate in that. But just understand you're probably going to lose a lot of money, right? The house is usually going to win. The house is usually going to win in that game. So just, if you are going to play that, just a little bit of fun money, guys. Don't go crazy. But if you're looking at actual asset allocation to one of the most fundamentally important technologies of our lifetime, right? This is the value layer of the internet. And I know all the noise and the bullshit from meme coins and all that stuff gets so much attention. We talk about that because it's interesting, and there's gains to be made for people who want to go on the risk spectrum. Risk, of course, always there. But this technology fundamentally is going to rewire the way that value is exchanged on the internet. And that's why it's going to continue to gain in value over time. Whether we talk about store of value with Bitcoin, a volatile one, but a store of value nevertheless, whether we talk about, think about the massive disruption that has happened from stable coins. Right? The international remittance businesses is massive. And stable coins, you can now send a transfer to somebody on the other side of the world No PayPal, no Swift bank transfers that take days and get scrutiny from the bank and all that stuff. You can put some money on your Solana wallet. It can be there in 5 seconds for a fraction of a penny fee. That is extremely powerful. The friction of moving money has basically disappeared thanks to crypto.
Right.
It's just that not enough people have adopted it yet, but it's getting adopted more and more every day. I think we're up to somewhere between 3 to 500 million crypto users.
Yeah.
Depending
I
on
mean,
how you
people
count
don't
the users and all
understand that
stuff.
sometimes. It's like, listen, when you think about it like this for the average person, what we're talking about is that sometimes getting access to your money is not free. Think about going to the ATM. If you go to the ATM and if it's not one associated with your bank, you have to pay a fee somewhere in the ballpark of maybe like $5 to $6. Okay, well, if I'm pulling out $100, I just need some quick cash, and I have to pay someone $5 to $6, that's 5 to 6% of a loss that I'm taking on my money right off the bat. Well, the same thing happens on a grander scale when we're trying to move our money from one place to the other, and the banks are extremely slow at clearing this from one place to the other, and it slows down business. So when people go, crypto doesn't have a point, like it's just some random thing, there's no utility to it. That is true for like 99% of the ones that we are talking about. But the ones that will survive, the ones that continue to stick around cycle after cycle, are proving, no, we do have utility. Yeah, sure, maybe it's still really immature. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but crypto is probably still like the equivalent of the internet in the 90s as far as like the technological cycle. It's early still. So it's like there is a lot of real world value in some of the top ones already. So that's why you and I can sit here and confidently say, yeah, we feel good about investing a responsible amount of our income in there for the long term, because we see that the banks aren't going to be able to transform that anytime soon without blockchain. So it's just going to be the natural way of doing business. And that's that. I want to go back to... Sorry, go ahead.
Can I just make a quick point?
Yeah,
What's
please.
interesting is that a lot of the biggest banks in the world have stopped trying to fight crypto technology. They're adopting crypto technology.
But they won't tell you
bonds
that.
on chain. They're launching their own stable coins. And this is right across the world.
Right.
Some of the world's biggest, most powerful banks, from BlackRock right on down, big players, household names, they have blockchain strategies. They're launching things on chains. They're running nodes. Like the amount of stuff going on in the background, most people have no idea about.
Right.
It's happening because this is the new value layer of the internet, and the banks have realized they can't stop it, so they might as well get on board.
Well, and this is why being a contrarian is so important. One thing that I always tell people is I say, don't do what the rich people say, do what the rich people do. Because a lot of times it doesn't line up to be the same thing. Case in point is Jamie Dimon is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase Bank. Okay, yeah, you know exactly where I'm going with this, right? Like he has for years been calling Bitcoin and Ethereum and every crypto a scam. It's pointless. Never put your money in it, blah, blah, blah. There are tons of sound bites of him and many other CEOs of bankers like him. If you don't have a credit card from these people, you use their services in one way or the other. They have been anti-crypto for years. But what have they been doing in the background while they've publicly been denouncing it? They've been lobbying and working with the government to be able to get it so they can trade it with their funds. They weren't against Bitcoin. They were against the fact that they didn't have a way to make money off of it. And they did everything they could to keep the price low until they could get access to it. And then when these things got approved, so because for those of you that don't know, now you can buy, Bitcoin and Ethereum by just going to the stock market. Now, it's not true that I know it's not on chain. We don't have to get into that, geeks. Okay. I know. But the point is, it's like you can have that. I always get my crypto purists coming at me. It's not actually your Bitcoin. I'm like, guys, that's not what I'm here to talk about right now. Okay. That's where smarter people like Lark go talk to him.
So here's an interesting fact for you on that exact thing. And this is something that happened back in 2022. It was a little bit before the FTX collapse. So BlackRock couldn't have predicted that FTX was going to collapse. But back in about August of 2022, BlackRock launched a private Bitcoin fund. And that didn't get a lot of press. Not a lot of people were paying attention. But they launched a private Bitcoin fund only for their super high net worth individual sort of clients who could buy Bitcoin. And I said at the time, you watch, they're going to launch a Bitcoin ETF in like a
Yep.
year because their private clients buying at the absolute bottom of the market are going to want X liquidity for
Yep.
big money later on. And that's exactly what happened. Never listen to what they say, always watch what they do.
Exactly. It's working out pretty well for me. I mean, another case in point that we could talk about is politicians. Okay. You can listen to the politicians. I love Unusual Whales. They have a great Twitter handle on this stuff. They start tracking, and there's a couple others that do a good job at this. And I think Unusual Whales just put out their political report because these public servants that we have to report what their financial gains are on things. Nancy Pelosi gets a lot of the hot press, just because she's one of the highest ranking government officials, and she crushes it.
Best trader in the world.
Oh my gosh, she's just the timing of how she knows these things, right? It's hilarious. It's legal insider trading. It's hilarious. But there are other politicians that are doing even better than her. And this is a both sides of the aisle thing. This is Republicans, Democrats, Independents. It's everybody, okay? It's the nature of the beast. So again, yes, I think we shouldn't allow them to trade and like all this other stuff. But my point is, again, until they actually make any of those changes, do what the rich and powerful people do, not what they say. Now, that being said, you are somebody I would consider rich and powerful because you have 1.8 million followers on social media. With that comes a lot of influence. Okay. Mm-hmm. On top of that, you also, are doing quite well for yourself. At least I know you were able to quit your job and start doing this full time, right? So what I would like to know is going back and rewinding a little bit. The trend that we are starting to see, the people that I work with, business leaders, entrepreneurs, business leaders looking to become entrepreneurs, salespeople, things like that. These are people who are naturally built to do hard things. Running a business is hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Being in sales is hard. So these people are not afraid of doing hard things, not afraid against going against the grain, but sometimes they just don't know exactly what to do. So we are seeing this trend to where high performers in business are going out and starting their own businesses, whether that's in a fractional, basis or, doing something to where they're fixing a problem in their industry, whatever the case is. And one of the most common questions that I get when people come to work with me is, can you help me quit my job, basically? Mm-hmm. So the thing I'd like to go back and ask you is rewind on this a little bit. You didn't know, I'm assuming that when you quit your job from being a teacher, to getting into crypto full time, I doubt that you were on your business roadmap going, yeah, I'm going to get up to like 1 million, subscribers and then monetize that and then blah, 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 right? Talk to me a little bit about what that was like, that transitional phase right before you quit. How did you prepare for that? Did you think about it 6 months, 2 years in advance? Were you putting money away on the side? How much did you do? Did you just kind of, were you like doing a little bit of stuff, or did you just go cold turkey, quit, and then go full time on it? Walk me through a little bit of your mindset, just before you left, how you prepared for it, and then what you did to get started full time.
Sure. I think I basically got myself running to the point where, okay, I'm making enough every month where it's replacing the income that I'd had from my 9 to 5.
Okay.
Right? And so once I hit that level, it's okay. Now
and if you don't mind me asking, I mean, you were a teacher. What was that? $4,000 or $5,000 a month?
Yeah. What was I probably making? I was probably making about 1,000 New Zealand dollars a week. So it'd be like 700, 800 US. So it wasn't working like crazy hours or anything, but yeah. So, it was okay. It's paying the bills, paying the rent, whatever. But, you weren't like living the high life being a teacher, right? So I thought, well, okay. I'd been working online enough. It was all freelancing online, by the way. I wasn't working in a school. I was working online, freelancing.
Okay.
Primarily teaching Russians, actually, because they're the best paying students.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, that's a whole other story. But I think making the jump for me wasn't that dramatic because I had, for a long time, been online, worked online, freelanced and stuff like that. And so I thought, well, in the worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, I can always just go and do something else. Like, it'll be fine. But the chance that it's going to work out, I think, is pretty high. And if it does work out, it's going to fundamentally change my life for the better.
What gave you the confidence to say the chances that I think it's going to work out are pretty high? What did you do to be able to actually feel that way?
I
Like,
think
did you
the
build a
most important
business
thing was that
plan? What were you doing?
I think the most important conceptually thing for me was that I just didn't really look at failure as an option. Like, I mean, there's always like, if it does happen, I guess I can go back to something and I'll figure it out later. But I never really thought that I was going to fail. I never really thought,
I love
even
that.
in the depths of 2018 and the worst times, I just thought, just got to keep making content, and that's all I did. Just showed up every day, kept making content, even when just like you're just eating sand every day and it sucks, but just you just keep doing it, and
You
that
controlled the
in a
things that
weird
you
way.
could control.
Exactly. In a weird way, 2018 was a great year because it allowed me to experiment with so many different things, types of content, video editing formats, all this kind of stuff that I had the time now to do. And I had made enough money during that period that, it wasn't like millions at the time. It was millions later, but it wasn't millions at the time then. But it was enough comparative to the money I'd had before. It's like, okay, I'm going to be fine. I have this time to work out how I want to make this function going forward and how I can start making more of a business out of it. And so I started iterating some ideas, and it's funny because we actually launched. I had this great idea. Okay, we're going to launch a newsletter. Terrible time to launch a newsletter. Bottom of the bear market, right? But I thought great idea for a business, and so I was working with some other influencers to launch that, which was a mess. Just bunch of we'll just say it's a mess. Okay,
It's a mess.
and so great idea. I relaunched a newsletter in 2020 by myself, and it's been highly successful since then. So it's been fantastic. But that time allowed me to hone the craft, essentially, and it was a great downtime because there wasn't really much going on. I could just screw around with stuff and see what landed, see what didn't, and so on and so forth. And so it was a good time from that perspective. But I guess I just never really. It's funny because I never really thought I was going to fail. I just thought, you know what, this is not going anywhere. Bitcoin, and there was just like that spark moment, and then that was around November when I quit my job. I was like, it's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter what the price does. It's not going to go anywhere. This is going to be here in 5, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. And if I'm here now building a business, and I know the vast majority of people will quit, right? And having worked as like a manager and stuff like that, and various roles, and you just see this. You see people's sort of work ethic, and that I always call it the sort of the last day syndrome. I worked when I was in university, I worked in a restaurant in the summers. And I'd always see the sort of last day syndrome. And it was similar when I worked on a cruise ship. I worked on a cruise ship when I was like 18, 19, 20. And you'd always see last day or last couple days, people know they're leaving, and they just screw around. They don't care anymore. I never thought like that. I said, I'm here, I'm getting paid. And until the last second and I clock out, I'm going to give it my all. And I'm not going to quit. I'm going to push and make things happen. And
the new term for that is quiet quitting.
What I did with crypto.
Yeah. I love that. I love the mindset that you had of like, this isn't a success failure dichotomy. Like, this is me just going down a journey, and yeah, maybe I got to make a turn here or there based off the circumstances, because, there's two things, there's only so many things that make a person successful at anything, right? One of the things that you did was, not that you didn't have fear, but you just acknowledged it and moved forward anyway. Like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, fear is a natural emotion, and it's actually a good thing. And, it's there for us to learn from it. The problem is we can't be controlled by it. And yes. Recently, I was, me and my wife, we just had our 10th year anniversary, and we went up to Maine. And thank you. And we went up to Maine, and we were hiking up Cadillac Mountain, because we were going to go see the sunrise and all that. So it is pitch black dark. We can't see anything. We're going by our flashlights, and you're just searching for these stupid little blue dots that should be a lot bigger on like rocks and trees to like let you know where to go. So as we're walking up there, and in this pitch black darkness, she goes, I know this is really irrational, but I'm just going to say it. And I said, okay, what? She goes, I don't know. I'm just kind of afraid right now. And I said, good. And she goes, that's it? That's all you're going to say? You're not going to like comfort me and say that everything's going to be fine? And I said, no. Why would I say that? I said, you should be afraid. We're walking up a mountain by ourselves. We have no care if something happens to us. There is moose. There is, potentially mountain lions. I don't know the area well. Definitely bears, all this other stuff around here. This is not our world. It's like not our native environment. We should be extra cautious, extra aware. It doesn't mean we're going to stop hiking up the mountain, but you should be afraid. She was like, well, you're not making me feel better. I was like, I wasn't trying to.
Like now, I was like, I wasn't thinking about the mountain lions, but now I am.
Yeah, great. Now you just made the fear even worse. And I kid you not even 10 minutes later, still couldn't see anything, but there was something freaking huge walking kind of far away in the bushes for us. I knew it wasn't a mountain lion because you're not going to hear a mountain lion like that. It was probably a moose because it was big. I heard like trees, like, branches moving. But yeah, it was just an interesting time. But anyway, the point I say all that to say is because the name of the podcast is called The Adventure for a reason. We are here, and an adventure is not necessarily climbing a mountain. It's not investing in something exciting like Bitcoin. An adventure in our lives is just finding something that needs to be accomplished and then taking action and doing it. We have tons of adventures that happen on a daily basis, right? The question is, do you choose to look at it that way? And I think that's exactly what you did. When you took off, you said, it's just an adventure. Yeah, if I fail, I'll do something else. When things weren't working out and what you were doing that got you to that level got all dried up, because the situation changed, you pivoted and you tried different things and you invested in yourself and, your skills and different things like that. And you got better. And then you survived when so many other people quit. And now look at you. So I think it's such a great lesson that's universal for people, regardless of where they are and what they're trying to do. You started doing little things before you went full time. When you went full time, you didn't use it as this success failure dichotomy. And then you kind of kept going there. What did you do? Just talking brass tacks here from a financial perspective. Okay. How did you set up your life when you were doing this? Like, were you living really cheap at the time and you were like, man, I've just got to get to like $100,000 net worth. So I know like I've got like enough to pay the bills before I leveled up, like, and got the nicer cars or whatever. Or were you on the total opposite end and like, hey, I went and spent money and I put myself in a corner to where I had no chance unless I made more and put the pressure on? Because I've heard both sides of the story, right? I'm curious to hear that once you got going full time, like from a financial perspective, how did you view making money outside of just investing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I didn't start really spending much money until I'd hit, 7 figures. And then I was like, okay.
So your lifestyle maintained until you crossed that millionaire thing. You pretty much kept it the same.
Yeah, like we were driving, like, I don't know, until then we were driving, what was it? It was the Mazda Variza. So like cheap, like $5,000 car, it's just like, just driving that. It's like, I don't need to change cars. It's fine. Renting a cheap place. And then, but like once sort of crossed over the 7-figure levels, okay, fine. Now we've got plenty of money. Okay, we're going to buy a new car. Nothing super extravagant, right? But a new car, fine.
Well, what was a new car? I'm curious what you went with.
I went with a Tesla Model 3.
Oh, there you go. Just got my Tesla Model Y last year. Love it.
Nice. Oh, they're great. We actually just bought a Tesla Model X, but for a new car here in Dubai.
Now, did you pay cash or did you pay with Doge?
I would, I might have paid. It would have made a good video if we could.
It would have made a great video.
I would have done it just for that, but no, it's paid cash. But I think all these sort of purchases, in my mind, buying something like a Rolex, right? Didn't buy my first Rolex till the net worth was much higher, and I just thought about it like the only way I could justify buying something like that is for it to be such a small percentage of my net worth that it's inconsequential. Like I couldn't imagine buying a $20,000 watch if my net worth was $100K.
But Lark, you've got $1 million, man. Like, who cares? And your business is doing well and you're investing, you know what's going on. Like, why not just go ahead and get the bigger house? Why not just spend and get nicer clothes and do all these things? Like, why not do the things that society tells you should do when you've made it? What do you value? What values do you hold in your life that prevented you from making all the dreams of what society wants you to do not come true?
Get in the Lamborghini, man.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. I saw plenty
I
of
think
crypto bros
a
with
big part
those.
of it. I think a big part of it just comes down to I never really valued any of that stuff before having
Mm,
money.
okay.
So after having money, I still don't really value most. Like I bought a Tesla SUV because I think it's a really nice car, and it's certainly I could have got a cheaper car. It's certainly not the most expensive car by far, but it was just a nice, reasonable car that I like and think is good.
So,
And
what do you
I
value?
think my time, my family, the ability to have the freedom to do the things I want to do when I want to do them, to do things like move to Dubai.
Mm,
It's interesting. Even the idea of changing countries, it's a bridge way too far for most people. Um, I have had relatively extensive experience traveling and moving around the world and stuff like that. I grew up in the States. My mom moved us to New Zealand at the age of 16. I moved to Hawaii with like 20 bucks in my pocket when I was 18. Um, Spent extensive time traveling Asia, moved to Ukraine and Russia back in the early 2010s, and just had all these different experiences. And so when it came time, like, okay, New Zealand's been great. It's been fun living here, but it's time for an adventure, time to do something different, time to shake
mm.
things up in our lives and have that different experience because I'm feeling sort of a bit stagnant, or was, right, in that situation where we were in New Zealand at that time. And I love New Zealand, great country, love it, big fan. However, it's time for a change, time to do something different, time to shake things up and live different experience for a while because you only get one go around as far as we know.
That's it.
And, you may as well have some interesting experiences while you're here, and hey, you know what? My dad, he's lived in the same town that he was born in, and he's pretty gosh darn happy. I got to give him that.
That's right. Traveling is great, not a requirement for happiness at all.
Not a requirement for happiness. I admire my father's ability to just be content and happy and live a happy life. It's a beautiful thing. But
So where
I
did
have this.
kind of this wanderlust and contrarian mindset come from? If you have the dad, what was it? Your mom that kind of instilled that in you? Where did that come from?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think mom definitely got a lot of those contrarian ideas into my head early on. She was prepping for Y2K and listening to Alex Jones in the 90s and stuff like that, and starting an internet business in the 90s. We were selling all kinds of
She
random
started
stuff
an
on
internet
eBay
business
back
in the
then.
'90s.
I was selling
Wow.
stuff on eBay when I was like 15, 16.
Whoa.
If I,
Okay. Yeah,
if
she's
I,
definitely
oh,
thinking ahead.
oh yeah, there's what's with Warhammer? These little Warhammer figurines, if you know what those
Oh
are, like
yeah.
little collectible figurines. And so I was into that as a teenager. But what I was kind of into the collectibles and sci-fi stuff. But I very quickly realized, like, holy crap, I can make a lot of money by going out and like reading through the classifieds and finding these things and then flipping them online for more money. And so
Wow.
like that's like that
That was
yeah.
that was ahead of the game. That was ahead of the game.
Yeah, it was ecom before we called it ecom, I guess. But
Yeah,
anyways,
that's pretty much what it was. The
yeah, so that
classifieds
was
and then
fun.
flipping it.
Yeah, I was just doing that kind of stuff, and so it's sort of the contrarian mindset. Don't trust the government and stuff like that, and you start looking at some of the things that have gone on in the world, and you kind of realize, like, holy crap, the world's a crazy place, man, and you really can't trust the government. So what the heck? And so it kind of
And
just got
ladies and gentlemen, this is coming from a guy that doesn't live in the United States, and he still doesn't trust his government. So there must be a universal principle to this.
there's a pretty universal principle: don't trust the governments, guys. But yeah, so this sort of contrarian mindset, I think, just started forming up, and I started traveling a lot. Again, my mom moved us out. 9/11 happened. We moved out of the United States. That was literally like my 9/11 morning experience. Mom wakes me up like, "Hey, America's under attack. Great night. We're going to New Zealand." Okay, great.
Wow.
So a few weeks later, moved to New Zealand, and that just kind of like kicked off this wanderlust for me. And it's funny because on the way there, we sort of stopped in Japan, and I looked out, and we spent a day there. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Because we just spent a small, like, ex-coal mining town, middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania
Okay.
kind of place. And I got there and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a giant world out here and I need to see everything. Let's go. So it kind of just, that was it. That's like kicked off the spark, and did huge traveling in my early 20s, and just, it really formed my view of the world and the everything's open for you. If you're brave enough to do it, everything's open for you. You just have to show up and actually buy the ticket, take the gosh darn ride, whether that's traveling, whether that's starting a business. You just have to do it, and this comes back to the content creation stuff. You just have to do it. One of the reasons why I have succeeded and not so many others have failed is because I just kept showing up. There's this great statistic on
Super
podcasts.
underrated.
It's like 99% of podcasts never complete more than 10 episodes. And if you actually want to have a successful podcast, basically the only key ingredient to having a successful podcast is keeping making podcasts.
That's it. Yeah. I'm 170 something episodes in. 3 years later, I started this podcast because, ironically, crypto, people kept coming up and asking me questions because I was doing pretty well financially. They were like, should I invest in this? And one of the first episodes I ever thought of was 4 questions you need to ask yourself to know whether or not you should invest in Bitcoin. And it was all just very basic stuff. Have you ever invested in a stock before? Have you ever bought this before? Do you have this much saved up? It's like, if you can't answer yes to all of these, and the answer is no, you shouldn't buy Bitcoin. Because I was having that conversation so much with people. It was the same conversation over and over. I said, I'm just going to do a podcast, and then I'm going to send them the episode. And then I don't have to say it over and over again. And now here we are. And I think that's a super, like, Outlast is literally a strategy in this world. It really is. If you can do something longer than 6 months, you'll probably beat out 80% of your competition just right off the bat.
Yeah. And
so
if you can focus on providing
like
value to the people who are giving you their time of day, then you're probably going to outperform the other people who are just there.
I love that. Let me ask you this. What is we're starting to wrap up here. You and I have talked a lot about a contrarian mindset. Why, for people who are like, hey, I'm noticing that just going with the flow isn't really getting me where I want to go. What's a tip that you would give somebody who's like, I want to start thinking differently? Maybe it's not about, trusting the government or anything like that, but it's just about their life in general. What's like a functional place to where people can kind of start, shifting that mindset in the way that they view the world around them?
I think one of the most important things is that just really almost anything is possible. And like, okay, maybe not like crazy stuff. Like, you're probably not going to become a billionaire. The odds are just against you in that, right? You might do really well, but just you don't need to think about it like that. But the interesting thing is you just have to take action. And this is one of the simplest things. Just be willing to take action, to challenge yourself to take action. I've talked to so many, you have that friend, you have those friends who are like, oh, I'd love to go travel. I'd love to go do that thing. Like, you're never going to do it. I even mention it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it.
Right.
Be the person. Don't be the person who talks about things. Be the person who does things. And I think that becomes a massive shift in mentality. When you become, instead of a person who talks about woulds and coulds and maybes, and you say, I will, this is what I'm going to do. This is my plan. You start thinking in action. When you start thinking in action, then you start taking actions. And then suddenly you gain momentum. Things start happening. You go places, you meet people, you get out of your comfort zone, you have new experiences, you get new perspectives on life, you get new ideas, right? The amount of ideas I've had just sitting on trains or on like crappy buses going through whatever country, it's just like, a lot can happen when you start taking action. And it's a very powerful thing. And that doesn't have to be traveling, right? That can just be in business or whatever it might be, or there's changes you need to make in your life. A lot of people know this. There's things you need to do. You need to stop smoking, you need to go to the gym or whatever it might be. The only way you get there is by taking the action, right? So if you can focus your mind more on action and less on sort of thinking about action, but actually doing, it can really change your life fast.
I'm going to add, I love everything about that. And I'm going to add one thing to it to compound the effect of taking action. Because fear is normally one of the main reasons we don't take action, right? Fear of what necessarily, is, yet to be identified based off the situation. But this is what I would say. Do exactly what you just said. Take the action. And if you need a little bit extra push or motivation, go tell 3 of your closest friends or family members that you're going to do it. And tell them when you're going to do it by. Make it something in the next 48 hours. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it in the next 2 days. And I want you all to ask me if I did. Because normally the primary fear that's keeping us from doing something new is the fear of embarrassing ourselves in front of people, the fear of what failure would look like. And the consequences of that fear are normally so blown out of proportion in our mind compared to what the upside is of actually doing it, that it's so ridiculous that we ever don't do it in the first place. So get it out of the way, be willing to embarrass yourself, and come up with a consequence if you don't end up doing that. I'm a big fan of the carrot and the stick.
I love it. I love it. And that's, a good social group will help keep you accountable to everything you want to do in your life, right? They'll
so
keep you
key.
accountable for your investing, for showing up to the gym, for socializing, whatever it's going to be, and positive people, right? If your core social circle is still talking about what you did in high school and doing beer bongs in high school, you need to upgrade your social circle, guys. That's just plain and simple, okay?
Totally agree. I tell everybody, and sometimes it's controversial, I don't feel like it is, but by the time you cross 30, if you don't have a circle of friends that you can talk to on a very regular basis about what goals you're working on, what your investments are doing, and thinking about, just consistent ways to improve your life, if that's not part of the regular conversation that are being had, then either you need to change the culture of the circle that you're in, or you need to go find a new one. And normally it's a lot easier to just go and find a new one. So I'm totally with you on that. Lark, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to be on here with me from the other side of the planet. I want to give you the last word here. And, if there's anything that you would like to shout from the mountaintops to people, outside of a Bitcoin price prediction on when we're going to hit 150, what would that be? What message would you like to share?
Oh, of course, Bitcoin to the moon.
If people haven't got that yet.
No, here's the thing. We're all going to die. I have a shocking news for you. You're going to die. We're all going to die.
Yes.
And whatever it is you're afraid of doing and you don't do, chances are when you're 80, 85, laying on that bed, thinking about your life that has been, you're going to go, holy crap. Why didn't I buy that ticket to Thailand? Why didn't I start the business? Why didn't I kiss that girl? Why didn't I do this, that, or the other thing? Look at people on their deathbed. It's all regret about things they didn't do, not the things they did. Not the time they took the chances. They love that stuff. It's all about the things that they didn't do and the risks they didn't take, the places they didn't go. So that would be the thing. Just keep this in perspective. I hope that reincarnation's real, or that we get to, who knows? I hope all that stuff's great, right? Or we're just in a simulation and you wake up and who the heck knows? We have zero proof of any of that. So chances are you got one life, make it count, make it amazing, make it extraordinary, because you can.
I love it. I don't think we could leave it on anything better than that. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I will have all of Lark's contact info, his newsletter, link, all the socials, things like that. Check it out in the description. It will all be there. And make sure you follow him, because it is hard. One of the reasons that I don't have a lot of crypto people on the podcast, one of the reasons that I had you on is exactly kind of the reason that we started off, is you are not a take your house, sell it, and put it all into some type of, crypto kind of a guy. You have a very well balanced approach on this. It makes sense. I can fully endorse the fact that, hey, yeah, you shouldn't have any more than 10% of all of your investable assets in any kind of crypto, right? Like, we have to have a level of responsibility here. And, so that's why I wanted to have you on. I think the message is super important, and I appreciate what you're doing out there, trying to help people build financial wealth and ultimately the life that they want to live.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.